Hi everyone, I'm Eve and I will be presenting what it is about epic. So without further ado, let's get started. So first of all, what is an epic? According to Webster's New World Dictionary, an epic is a long narrative poem in dignified style which talks about the deeds of a historical or traditional hero. And I'm sure by the definition itself, you can already get the gist of what an epic is about. But let me tell you more about it by telling its characteristics, which can help you to distinguish between epic and any other poetry types. So, one of the base characteristics of an epic is the length. The length in an epic is undeniably long, as in the definition itself, it defines epic as a long narrative poem, which leads to why most well-known epics have been divided into multiple books. Like for example, Homer's epic, The Odyssey, it has like 24 books in total. Next, epic also dwells upon the achievements of a traditional or historical hero. In every epic, poets enthusiastically tell about a hero, a great bravery and valor in his or her characteristic, and also poets highlight the deeds of the hero toward humanity or even the world itself. Examples of epic heroes are King Arthur, Beowulf, Gilgamesh, and etc. The next characteristics of an epic is the language. The language used in an epic are grand and sublime. The words used are no common, and events or situation in the poem are described elegantly in style, and poets also exaggerate a hero's prowess, deeds, bravery with hyperbole, and they far-fetched compare objects with epic simile throughout the poems. And in epics, the language also includes some supernaturalism elements like fairies, gods, goddess, and any force of supernatural power. The last characteristic of an epic is morality. Most written epics have moral values, as the poet's purpose of writing it is to give readers a reflection or moral lessons. Like for instance, John Milton's Paradise Lost, which he wrote for his readers to justify the ways of God to men through the story of Adam. And this moral value also serves as the theme in his epic. And yeah, that's it for what an epic is about. Next, Marion will be presenting the historical background of epic.
Epic poems trace back to some of the earliest human civilizations, both European and Asian. Some of the world's oldest written narratives are Babylonian Gilgamesh, the Sanskrit Mahabharata, Homer Iliad and Odyssey, and also Virgil Aeneid. The Epic of Gilgamesh is considered by some scholars to be the oldest surviving example of great literature. The poem is thought to have been written in approximately 2100 before century and traces back to ancient Mesopotamia. The poem tells about an ancient king, Gilgamesh, a descendant from the gods, who embarks on a journey to discover the secret of immortality. Both of Homer's epics became the standard for Greek and Latin oral poetry, as they are composed in dactylic hexameter. Homeric verse is characterized by the use of extended similes and formulaic phrases, such as epithets, to fill out the verse form. Greek and Latin epics frequently open with an invocation to the muse, as shown in the opening lines of the Odyssey. Over time, the epic has evolved to fit changing languages, traditions, and beliefs. Other epics of note include Beowulf, Edmund Spenser's Faerie Queene, Dante's Divine Comedy, John Milton's Paradise Lost, and Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Aurora Leigh. The usage of the epic is to formalize mythological traditions in many cultures, such as the Norse mythology in Edda, the Germanic mythology in Nibelungenlied, and Finnish mythology of Elias Lönnrot's Kalevala. In the 20th century and beyond, poets expanded the epic genre further with a renewed interest in the long poems. Poems that play with the boundaries of the genre and re-envisioning the epic through the lens of modernism are The Cantus by Ezra Pound, Maximus by Charles Olson, The Aeneid by Gwendolyn Brooks, The Battlefield Where the Moon Says I Love You by Frank Stanford, the Ive Trilogy by Anne Waldman, and last but not least, Patterson by William Carlos Williams.
Thank you, Marion, for the historical background regarding epic poem. Now, I am going to continue our group's presentation by introducing you to two poets that are quite well known for their work in epic poem. They are Lord Byron and also Homer. First, let's get to know Lord Byron. Lord Byron was born with the name George Gordon Byron. He is the sixth Baron Byron and was born in 22nd January 1788 in London, United Kingdom. He is an English poet, peer, and politician. He is regarded as one of the most famous English poets who are widely read and influential. Lord Byron joined the Greek War of Independence fighting the Ottoman Empire, and while leading one of the campaigns, he died because of a disease, and this the reason why he was revered as the national hero. One of his famous epic poem is Don Juan that was produced in 1819. Don Juan is an epic satire poem which also is a model of modern epic poem in literature. In Don Juan, that was written by Lord Byron, Don Juan is considered as someone who is easily seduced by women instead of a womanizer. And Lord Byron do not like poetic imagination, and that's the reason why he always choose to write epic poem instead of other theme in poems, because epic poems usually does not require much imagery. Other famous works of Byron are She Walks in Beauty, Manfred, and also Darkness. Enough about Lord Byron. Now we are continuing our presentation with the second poet, which is well known with the name Homer. Homer is the author of two famous epic poems, which are the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad is set during the Trojan War, and it tells us the events and the battle between King Agamemnon and the warrior. The Odyssey is the sequel of the poem The Iliad and will be further explained by my groupmate later. And these two epic poems are the cultural works of ancient Greek literature. Homer always highlights three aspects in his poems, which are nobility, heroism, and good life. So Homer always provides a fixed model and example of these three aspects in his poems. Strangely, Homer is considered as a mystery. This is due to the fact that some scholars believe that Homer is one man and others believe that Homer is a group. So in other words, we can say that the Iliad and the Odyssey was written by a group instead of one man. And that is all for me.
Assalamualaikum and greetings. So now I'm going to explain on one of the example of epic poem. One of the well-known works of epic poems is the Odyssey, written by Homer. Homer is well known for one of his greatest works, that is the Odyssey, and also the Iliad. Some say that the Odyssey is the continuation of the Iliad. So, the Odyssey is written in 725 BCE in Homeric Greek. It consists of 12,110 lines in dactylic hexameter verse. That's 24 books in total. So, the Odyssey tells about a Greek hero named Odysseus, also known as Ulysses. The poem tells about this hero's 10-year journey back home, where it is filled with adventures, where he encountered challenges after the fall of Troy, the Trojan War. So, Odysseus struggles to get back home to Ithaca, to his family, his wife Penelope, his son Telemachus, and also to his throne, as he is the king of Ithaca. So, throughout this poem, the poem shows how Odysseus faces hardships as he did not heed the gods' warning and he got entangled with mythical creatures. For example, he was imprisoned by Calypso for 7 years, and he also he and his crew got in trouble with the Scylla, the six-headed monster, the Cyclops, the Sirens, and that's where he managed to anger Poseidon because Odysseus blinded his son. Meanwhile, while the story of Odysseus is being told throughout the poem, we can also see that during Odysseus' absence in Ithaca, his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus is struggling to chase off Penelope's suitors, those who want to ascend to the throne, and urges Penelope to find a new king. And also, this issue was aided and helped by Athena, where she disguised herself to help Telemachus. So, this epic poem, the Odyssey, describes the heroic deeds and adventures and battles of Odysseus, while shows the moral values, the heroic deeds, that is how Odysseus manages to overcome all this with his intelligence, with his will, with his courage itself. So, I will recite one of the part of the poem, that is where Odysseus finally reunites with his wife Penelope. Now from his breast into the eyes the ache of longing mounted, and he wept at last, his dear wife, clear and faithful, in his arms. longed for as the sun-warmed earth is longed for by a swimmer, spent in rough water where his ship went down, under Poseidon's blows, gale winds and tons of sea. Few men can keep alive through a big surf to crawl, clotted with brine, on kindly beaches in joy, knowing the abyss behind. And so she too rejoiced, her gaze upon her husband, her white arms around him, pressed as though forever. So that's it from me for the Odyssey. That is one of the examples of epic poems. Next, I pass to Nurin.
Okay, I am Nurin Afiqah binti Ismail Zakri. We'll be explaining the next example of an epic poem, Don Juan, written by Lord Byron. So Don Juan was written by Lord Byron in 1819. It was written in sections which he called cantos. The poem Don Juan has 17 cantos altogether. However, when Lord Byron had passed away, the 17th canto was left unfinished. The poem was written in ottava rima, which refers to the stanzas in the poem. Each stanza contains 8 lines, hence the ottava. In other words, cantos can also be said as episodes. The rhyme scheme of this poem is A B A B A B C C, and this poem contains 16,000 lines. Even in Canto 1, it has already contains 222 stanzas. Next is the summary of the poem. The poem is basically about Don Juan's adventure and life journey throughout the poem in each canto. So basically, in each canto has different stories of Don Juan's adventures. To those who have heard about Don Juan, you might have known him as the womanizer, but actually originally in the poem of Lord Byron, he is actually the opposite of what people have thought of. Actually, throughout the poem, the women who are always trying to seduce him. A bit about Canto 1 Don Juan. So the first canto, Don Juan, was basically an introduction to the main character, Don Juan himself, the parents, and his first love affair, which is Dona Julia. Dona Julia, who is also his mother's best friend and a married woman to Don Alfonso. So when Dona Julia and Don Juan met, they always spent time together for hours secretly, even in Julia's home. Later in the poem, Don Juan was caught in a heap of clothes by Dona Julia's own husband. And the next morning, Don Juan returned home early in the morning with most of his clothes left in the hands of the angry husband. So that is how the Canto 1 Don Juan ended. So the journey of Don Juan continues in the next cantos of the poem. So now I'll be reciting 2 stanzas out of 222 stanzas of Don Juan Canto 1. Young Juan now was 16 years of age. Tall, handsome, slender, but well knit he seemed, active though not so sprightly as a page, and everybody but his mother deemed him almost man, but she flew in a rage, and bit her lips, for else she might have screamed. If any said so, for to be precautious, was in her eyes a thing the most atrocious. Amongst her numerous acquaintance all, selected for discretion and devotion, there was the Dona Julia, whom to call pretty were but to give a feeble notion of many charms in her as natural as sweetness to the flower or salt to the ocean. Her zone to Venus or his bow to Cupid, but this last simile is trite and stupid. So basically these 2 stanzas tell us a bit about Dona Julia and Don Juan himself. As you can see from these 2 stanzas, the rhyme scheme of this poem is as the same as what I've mentioned before, which is A B A B A B C C. Okay, so that is all from us. Thank you everyone. Hopefully all of you understand what we have explained and presented today. If you have any questions, please ask. Thank you.